Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. Over half a century ago, India created a new nation, Bangladesh, the land of Bengal. That land used to be known as East Pakistan until 1971. It was ruled by the Pakistan army, which embarked on a genocide. Now, genocide means when you try and erase the existence of a people. It was one of only 5 other such genocides in the 20th century. The Jews in Europe, the massacres in Bosnia, Rwanda, Armenia, Cambodia, and finally East Pakistan. Over 10 million refugees fled into India in 1971, creating a grave internal crisis for India. Now, the Indian Armed Forces stormed into the rescue in December 1971 and they created a new country. They did that in just 13 days. They created the new country of Bangladesh in just half the time it takes for a ship to sail from India to the United States. But today, Bangladesh is once again under threat of a different kind. There have been hundreds of attacks on minorities since the fall of the Sheikh Hasina government in August. The population of the minorities in Bangladesh has steadily declined from 1971, from 23% then to just 9% in 2024. Minorities continue to be under attack. There are attempts to turn the clock back in Bangladesh and erase the history of Bangladesh's creation and its founding father, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. And today, to talk about just these worrisome developments, I have with me 3 very special guests. These are 3 heroes who helped create the new nation of Bangladesh in just 13 days. Over 3,000 of their comrades died creating this new nation. And until August this year, our heroes would have been hailed as liberators in Bangladesh. But today, given what's going on in Bangladesh, one isn't quite so sure. Gentlemen, it's an absolute honor to welcome you to the News9 Plus show. I have with me Brigadier Balram Mehta, Brigadier Basant Ponwar, and in the studio with me is Commander Vijay Kapil. Absolute honor to have you on the show, gentlemen. Welcome to the News9 Plus show. I want to start by asking you this, Commander Kapil. You're one of the people who helped create Bangladesh over 50 years ago. You've been watching the news over the media over the last 4 months. How worried are you at what is going on in a country that you helped create? You created that country and you stepped out. What are your thoughts and feelings today?
Well, it's not a new story because immediately after the liberation and assassination of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the conditions completely changed and we saw the start and increasing hostilities towards the country,
Right.
which liberated them. They are basically, the Bengalis are very excitable
Right.
people, and a little instigation, it turns into riot. And it's as in Hindi we call it, becomes a bhed chal thereafter.
Right.
I mean, they just become violent and sort of completely deaf to the reason.
Right.
And it happened, and we saw that, and we faced it not from 75 onwards till Sheikh Hasina came into power.
Right. So 75 was a big shock when you had that coup that assassinated the founding father of Bangladesh itself.
That's right.
And I'm going to ask, Brigadier Mehta this. Brigadier Mehta, of course, for those of you who don't know him, is a war hero from Bangladesh, specifically in the battles of Bangladesh, where his 45 cavalry fought the Pakistan army. His story is part of a Hindi movie called Pipa that released just last year. Brigadier Mehta, what are your thoughts when you see the situation in Bangladesh now? This is a country that you and your comrades shed blood to create over half a century ago.
All that I can say is that people are the same in the subcontinent, But here is the case of a nation, it's a case of a people who are beginning to forget both the history as also the geography, as also an expression of ingratitude for what the Indian Army and the Indians did in 1971 was to liberate them from what was abject misery, with millions of people involved in genocide, rape and plunder. But as far as people are concerned, they have to, whether they like India or they don't, but they have to remember their geography and their history. I think for the time being, I've said enough. Because if you reflect on just these 2-3 words, I think the answer will come out.
Remember the history and geography of Bangladesh. Brigadier Ponwar, you're one of those young officers who were part of the Indian thrust into then East Pakistan in December 1971. Explain to us the kind of genocide that you witnessed, the horror that the Pakistan military had perpetrated on the people in 71, and the reasons for India going in, the reasons that you, Commander Kapil, Brigadier Mehta, you chose to move into Bangladesh in 1971.
It all started on 25th of March 1971, when Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was declared as the leader of the Awami League, both in East and West Pakistan. Awami League was the majority party in East and West Pakistan. He would have been the Prime Minister of entire Pakistan.
Yes.
That was not accepted by the West Pakistanis. And they let loose the Pakistan Army station, about 2.5 or 3 division worth, inside East Pakistan, now Bangladesh, to carry out a genocide and put all these intellectuals in universities and
Yes.
political parties behind bars or obliterate them from the face of the earth. Go and carry out indisciplined activities inside villages. In fact, the whole of Bangladesh, erstwhile East Pakistan, had just 2 cities, Dhaka and Chittagong. The rest of the country were all villages, underdeveloped villages, bullock carts, tracks, no roads, no bridges on the rivers. People
Right.
used to cross in boats. And when this genocide started, people started running in all 4 directions. And they came into India,
Yes.
into West Bengal, into Tripura, into Meghalaya, and all these places. Suddenly refugees started rising and rising to over 10 million. And the government of India went around the world, request them to entertain people, to tell them to come and carry out some kind of a resolution. But it did not happen. And ultimately, we had to go in and resolve the thing ourselves. Obviously, from 4 or 5 directions, that we had to bring the indisciplined Pakistani forces to book and liberate a nation.
Right.
They had collected so many Mukti Bahini personnel who fought alongside us, and they were very brave boys, young boys. And after all, even their leader, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, said on 25th March
Right.
that take up weapons and liberate your nation. And that's how it happened. By 16 December, from 5 directions, the Indian Army went in. We gave them a nation in a plate. The Bangladeshis developed.
Yes.
They made a government.
Right.
They had various activities going on. Economic activities came up.
Yes.
And a new nation was born.
Right.
And
A new
now,
nation was
as of
born.
today,
Yes.
the whole nation, which was under development and coming into the world surface, has fought amongst themselves. Why? Which are minorities? Where are a minority, you're part of that nation.
Right.
There'll be
Right.
so many other minorities.
Yes.
We are all same people of
Yes.
that nation.
Right.
और इस घर को आग लग गई घर के चिराग से
Yes.
हम आपस में लड़ रहे हैं.
Right.
If you're a minority but you're a Bangladeshi,
Right.
how can you cast evils
Right.
on your own people?
Yes.
And that is what is happening today. And
Right.
it requires massive peacekeeping operations for people to intervene and bring their nation back to the tracks.
Right. It requires a peacekeeping operation to bring the nation back on its tracks. Commander Kapil, you were part of the Navy, of course, the covert operation, and you're part of Operation X, the book as well, where you trained over 400 Mukti Bahini naval commandos to liberate Bangladesh by blowing up all those Pakistani ships, the ships that were bringing in economic aid for the military junta. Today, almost 50 years later, do you think that the kind of violence that we are witnessing in Bangladesh, the unsettlement of the minorities, the displacement of the minority, the fear that's there in Bangladesh right now, could this affect Bangladesh's economic development? The country that turned from an economic basket case in 1971, as Brigadier Ponwar mentioned, to being one of the fastest growing economies in Asia. Do you think all of this violence could actually undermine the Bangladesh growth story? You've been traveling to Bangladesh very often in the last couple of years.
It is not good for them in any case, in any way, because this kind of internal disturbances in the country, they destabilize the country, whatever the leadership may be.
Right.
The business suffers, their economic situation worsens, and eventually what happens is they slip down the ladder in the list of good countries.
Right.
And that is what is going to happen if it prolongs.
Yes.
If it's not arrested immediately by the leadership, and if or either that happens or the leadership changes.
Yes.
That a sensible leader can really bring in a lot of prosperity to the country.
Absolutely, as Sheikh Hasina did.
Sheikh Hasina did.
And you've seen, you've been traveling to Bangladesh over the last couple of decades. Explain to us how Sheikh Hasina stabilized the country over the last few decades. She's been called a dictator and a despot and all of that, but she brought a lot of order and stability and economic growth and prosperity to Bangladesh.
Correct. I mean, like she did use some strong arm method, which is necessary in a country like that, because people are incitable. I mean, like they at the drop of the hat, there is dharna, there is a kind of revolt of some kind or the other, and people are not happy if you're strict with them. And any country to grow, the certain kind of strong hand method is to be used by the leaders, so that the path chalked out for the country economically, militarily, or the stability wise goes on on track.
Right, and in fact, this point that you made about India's sacrifice and this peace and stability, this was actually raised by Taslima Nasreen, the Indian, the Bangladeshi writer who's here in exile in India, and she's actually commended the sacrifice made by the Indian troops in 1971 to liberate Bangladesh. And she's actually worrying about the fact that Bangladesh might be drifting closer towards Pakistan. But Brigadier Mehta, I have to ask you this because it's not just Taslima Nasreen. There's a lot of other people who've been very concerned about the kind of debate, discourse that's emerging from Bangladesh, where Pakistan is suddenly, the new kid on the block. People are moving towards Pakistan. Visa restrictions are being eased. Do you see a kind of an attempt within Pakistan to turn the clock back on the liberation struggle, erase their history, rewrite their history, erase the history of the founding father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman as well?
Yes, in this particular case, what is also happening is, it's an expression of ingratitude for what the country did. I remember when Sheikh Hasina, the Prime Minister, had visited India a few years ago, what our Prime Minister said was that this was the biggest battle for liberty and freedom of people fought in the last century. This is something that they are forgetting. Also, what I want to share with you is a small this thing from my book, if you have the time, which indicates what I had mentioned earlier, the history. When people forget their history, then history repeats itself.
Right.
And that is how Pakistan is now using Bangladesh as a proxy.
Yes.
Because these people are forgetting their history. I'm reading a small portion from my book, The Burning Shafi.
Yes.
Bhutto was aware that if physical separation, different languages and lack of trust were the fundamental reasons. A feeling of disenchantment permeated the atmosphere. The popular joke in the subcontinent used to be that the two wings of Pakistan, separated by 1,000 miles, were united by three things: Islam, English, and Pakistan International Airlines.
Right.
And as we noticed today, Pakistan International Airlines has started operating once again
Yes.
between Karachi and Dhaka
Right.
for visa-free Bangladeshis to enter Pakistan.
Yes.
The last being in 1965 war had created a perception in the Bengali minds that they had been left at the mercy of India. Only one division was deployed to defend East Pakistan against India.
Right.
And the assurances that China would intervene in case India attacked sounded hollow.
Right.
The long-standing discriminatory and exploitative policies, the sense of alienation and Bengali grievances since the formation of Pakistan in 47 created a sense of victimization. The Bengali representation in the civil services, defense services, and management positions
Yes.
was marginal.
Absolutely. So there,
At the time
yes.
when Pakistanis were referring to Bangladeshis as bingos,
Yes.
and they were being asked to lift their lungis and identify themselves
Yes.
and the religion that they belong to.
Right.
And now to revert back to that situation is a clear indication that history, recent history, is what is being forgotten.
Recent history is
And
being
that is not
forgotten.
only
Brigadier
there.
Ponwar, do you see an attempt in Bangladesh, as Commander Kapil and Brigadier Mehta have been saying, an attempt to turn the clock back on Bangladesh's freedom struggle itself, to rewrite parts of that history in a way that would not be comfortable for the present ruling dispensation in Bangladesh?
As of today, it gives a clear indication that they want to eradicate and rub off the entire 71 operation. I visited Bangladesh just about 2 years back as a veteran. We went to the museum, we saw the victory parade, we saw everything. And all that museums, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman statues, or the entire Awami League has been ill-treated, eradicated, and put away as if it does not exist. They
Right.
want to restart Bangladesh with a new concept
Right.
of what West Pakistan and East Pakistan were, and go back, create East Pakistan. As it is, all visas have been stopped.
Yes.
You can just drive in and you can just fly into Pakistan, into Bangladesh from West Pakistan.
Right.
So the situation is becoming more and more anti-India
Yes.
and West Pakistan, and we have a new situation developed. Okay, 53 years ago, there was a situation of the refugees. Now we have a new situation.
We have a new situation
to work it
indeed.
out
Yes,
and
we have to-
face and
Yes.
ways and means to protect the population of within that country. You
Yes.
cannot, just because they are minority,
Yes.
you cannot put them to sleep like this.
Of course.
Every day there is somebody hanging on a tree. The
Yes.
padris are hanging on the tree. The temple keepers are hanging on the tree.
Yes.
And gradually it is just violence and violence against the community.
Violence against communities, and of course this is not just any kind of isolated incident. There are several such incidents, and there's always the danger that there could be people being pushed into India like it was back in 1971. Commander Kapil, you have this back of our mind, what happened when masses of refugees were pushed into India. It was a kind of a weaponization of refugees to burden India with more than 10 million refugees. Do you see Bangladesh, the long term, what is the long term view for Bangladesh? Is this kind of a policy of animosity towards India and its own minorities, is it sustainable, or will there be better sense that will prevail in the long run within the rulers in Bangladesh?
It's very difficult to say, but the Bangladeshis, what they are, what they've shown in the last 50 years, it's the good era was only when Sheikh Hasina was there
Yes.
for 12 years, and the progress took place that time, if you really count it. And unless there's a regional cooperation between the countries, the neighboring
Yes.
countries, militarily you are not strong, economically you get weaker,
Yes.
and only you're moving down south.
Yes. Absolutely.
And it won't benefit anybody in neighborhood, themselves, basically themselves, or the neighboring countries.
And also there is the threat of Bangladesh once again becoming a launch pad for Islamists as it was in the past. And Brigadier Mehta, I have to ask you this because in the past there were many terror groups, anti-India terror groups that were being sheltered in Bangladesh. You had various insurgent groups from the northeast who were operating freely within Bangladesh. All of this ended under Sheikh Hasina's regime. Do you foresee this coming back, this specter of insurgents hiding in Bangladesh coming back under the present regime and these circumstances?
Very much, this is a distinct possibility, because what is bringing them together is Islam once again.
Right.
And if this remains the focal point or the main motivation as far as Bangladesh is concerned, overlooking all other realities of neighborhood and the goodness and the freedom, that we fought for, if this becomes the only issue, then of course there's grave danger, as we've seen in the past, of radicals and terrorists gathering encouragement to fight a war, proxy for Pakistan, as also the other powers in the subcontinent.
Absolutely. Bangladesh as a haven for Islamist forces and terrorist groups not inclined towards India. But Brigadier Panwar, what are India's options now? As a veteran of the 1971 war, what would you advise on what is the course of action before the government of India now, 50 years later?
First and foremost, our borders have to be totally protected. No refugees, no people from Bangladesh should enter our country from the northeast side. And secondly, as being discussed, an insurgency will break up because they are a different cup of tea altogether. With the help of West Pakistan, an insurgency in the border states across from Bangladesh is likely to break out, and we have a new situation, development in the northeast. Though we have put down insurgencies in so many of the states like Nagaland, Tripura and Meghalaya and so many others. Manipur is another cup of tea. It's getting along, but it will be resolved soon. But here we have got another one, which is from across the Bangladesh borders. So we have to be prepared for that. And in terms of insurgents kicking into our boundary, it's not all that strong because of the rivulets passing through the international border, and it cannot be fenced. So that is the situation we have to worry. And secondly, and lastly, Bangladesh must have a stable government. They must have a proper elected government. At present, it is all ad hoc going on. And the crowd, the people, the groups are doing what they feel like. They can oust the prime minister from his own house. They can oust the president from his own house. The president and prime minister of a number of countries are finding their closest aircraft and leaving the country and going away. So this kind of a law and order situation and the extent where the population is doing what they're doing has to be controlled. Otherwise, we have a serious situation across the world.
We have a serious situation. Yes, absolutely, Brigadier Panwar. The fact that free and fair elections are nowhere on the horizon, Commander Kapil, does that worry you? Because one of the immediate results of the liberation was the restoration of democracy to Bangladesh, where you had elected governments, coming to power. But do you see a power vacuum here emerging when there's no sign of elections being called for? And what would India's options be in such a crisis?
I know it's a very serious kind of a situation, because there's no solution of sensible governance in Bangladesh until free and fair elections are there. And that also raises the question how free they would be. Because the superpowers and the big powers are playing games. It'll be a kind of a safe haven for the agents of those powers to come and try and destabilize India. And our situation there would be worse. So unless the regional cooperation starts, proper government comes into Bangladesh and regional cooperation starts in full earnest, like it was in the
Yes.
last few years, it's a problematic situation for India.
It's a problematic situation for India indeed. And Brigadier Mehta, what would be your recommendations? What would India have to do? Is it just wait and watch? We've been talking to a number of diplomats, and they say, look, it's just wait and watch, because India is, master of the game when it comes to waiting and watching. We don't act as quickly as we did in '71 in many situations. But what would your what would your recommendations be? That do we wait this out, or do we intervene in some form or the other? Because an unstable Bangladesh is not in India's interest.
We are a very large nation with the help, with the assistance of Mukti Bahini.
Yes,
Not freedom and liberty for this particular country.
yes,
I think we should be a little more patient, a little more
Right.
generous. After all, the Bengali mind is a very sharp mind.
yes,
I'm sure the young generation which is growing up
yes,
and has read the history properly know that as far as India is concerned,
yes,
it will always remain a 13-day
right,
break
yes,
before India has to show its annoyance.
yes,
But for the time being, certainly we should stand by and watch. I think it's just a passing phase
yes,
where certain proxies
yes,
have initiated this particular reaction that we are watching.
right,
But the sharp early mind will, I think, soon overcome.
Right.
Because as I mentioned right at the beginning, in the subcontinent, people are generally the same.
yes.
And they can't be forgetting the good things done by the neighbors.
Absolutely. Good things done by the neighbors, including creating countries in a shorter time than it takes to sail from India to the United States. I mean, 14 days is how long, less than 14 days in fact, is how long it took India to create Bangladesh. And thanks to the efforts of the Indian Armed Forces, and absolute honor again, Brigadier Mehta, Brigadier Ponwar and Commander Kapil, to have you on the show and talk about this. As you've just heard from our veterans, they're deeply concerned about what is going on in Bangladesh right now, the internal situation in Bangladesh. So the prognosis from our veterans, our distinguished panelists, our war heroes, is that India needs to wait this out, wait and watch, because time is on India's side. Thank you for watching. Raj Kapoor, one of the most influential Indian film personalities, was born 100 years ago this month. He was the greatest of the Kapoors, a film family that's been involved in the Hindi film industry for 4 generations. Prime Minister Modi recently called Raj Kapoor a soft power pioneer. Raj Kapoor made just 10 films, but each one was a classic, not just in India, but across the world. Their songs were hummed across the world, particularly in Soviet Russia. On the eve of his 100th anniversary, we talked to 2 ladies connected to films and Raj Kapoor. Ekaterina Filipova, she's a producer of Pan Atlantic Studio. She's currently filming in India. And we have Bhavna Somaya, of course, Indian film critic and journalist and historian. And also joining us is Sarfraz Alam, producer of this film Gems.
Namaste.
Hello.
Namaste, Ekaterina.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Ekaterina,
Namaste.
I must ask you this. Namaste. You're currently filming in India, and we are talking about Raj Kapoor being this bridge that connects India to Russia. You know, you had Avara, that film that was released in 1954. The songs are hummed across the world, especially in Russia. Tell us about what Raj Kapoor means to the people of Russia.
So it's a myth for Russian people, of course, because in Soviet time, Indian movie was incredibly popular in Russia,
Yes,
and the name of Raj Kapoor is known everywhere in Russia. If, of course, we are meaning the old generation, because, well, they're interested more by American movie, by Russian contemporary movie, etc., etc., etc. That's why I find really important our first co-production between Russia and India, our first feature film, which will make again
Yes.
Indian trace, Indian style in movie popular in Russia.
right. Bring India back to Russia, what Raj Kapoor did so many decades ago. But Bhavna Somaya, you've been documenting Indian cinema for decades. And of course, you've interviewed Raj Kapoor several times. Explain for our viewers here the impact that Raj Kapoor really had across the world, particularly in the Russian Federation and in the Soviet Union, of course, prior to the Russian Federation. Why was he so immensely popular in Russia?
I have been documenting Indian cinema for a while, but I have not interviewed Raj Kapoor several times. I have met him about 2-3 times, and they were memorable moments, and I remember them very clearly. One day we had gone to the RK studio, and we were told that he was at the RK cottage, which was adjoining the studio. And he called us over, and we had a cup of tea, and we continued to chat with him for a very long time. When he was making Ram Teri Ganga Maili.
Yes.
And he explained to us how the Ganga that starts from the Gangotri becomes polluted by the time it ends.
Right.
And Mandakini was the metaphor for the Maili,
Yes.
I think it's not about Russia. I think I will leave about why he was so special to Russia to the other lady.
Yes.
But why he was so appealing to all of us, the Indians, is because he understood the common man.
Right.
And he made films for the common man, for you and me.
Yes.
And he catered to all gender, all generations. He understood the child. That one fantastic song, Nanne Munne Bache Teri Mutti Mein Kya Hai?
Yes.
He made films about the street children. He made films about casteism, about the dacoits,
Yes.
about somebody who is frightened because everybody is following him, like in Jagte Raho.
Yes.
And then he takes the last scene where Nargis tells him that if you've done nothing, what is there for you to get scared of?
Right.
And more than that, I think that he represented a generation where they were so full of courage and adventure.
Right.
He launched his production house. He became a director so young.
At 24, he was a director at 24.
So young to make a studio, to have so many floors.
Yes.
And continue to do films. And there were times he made not very good films outside.
Yes.
But I think it is perfectly understandable. And today, when I'm older, I forgive him for those choices, because when you are making a film the kind he made, like Mera Naam Joker, and you are running a studio, you need chunk of money. And that money comes from those kind of films. And it's perfectly all right to make that kind of concessions.
Yes.
The best thing about Raj Kapoor and his generation of filmmakers were that they used to share their scripts.
Yes.
He would send it to Bimal Roy, and Bimal Roy would send him his script. And they would tell each other what was wrong with it. Today, none of these young guys do this because they are paranoid about anybody robbing their stories.
Right.
And when he held his preview show, he called his entire staff his gateman watchman.
Yes, absolutely.
And he told them that you are free to tell me what you don't like and say it is rubbish.
Yes.
Today, these guys spend crores and crores. They don't show a frame to anybody, and the film is a disaster.
The films are a disaster indeed. But Bhavna,
how vain can you be that you think that your perspective is right, and you're not taking feedback from anybody?
Absolutely. Clearly, he was a showman. I mean, that's the reason that he was called a showman. He was so ahead of the rest of the crowd, and he made those movies that really literally connected with everyone in India for the common man. And of course, these themes were universal, and that's possibly one reason why they felt they connected with people across the world, particularly in Russia. I want to talk to Sarfraz now. Sarfraz, you're co-producing this movie Gems, this Russian production which has come to India after a very long time. You've heard of a Russian crew, a cast and crew making a movie in India. What has been the impact of Raj Kapoor on the Indo-Russian relationship? How influential is Raj Kapoor still in 2024?
So, thank you very much for inviting. Yes, we are talking about a legend today, and I probably can say that Raj Kapoor is quite I mean, more famous in Russia, still in all the Soviet Union,
Yes.
than India and Indian parts, like in small villages and small towns. If or if you ask a young boy about in India, young boy about Raj Kapoor and how many movies he has done,
Right.
hardly can say. But in Russia and other CIS countries,
Yes.
even the youngsters still remember and they know, they learn about the movie of Raj Kapoor.
Right.
I shoot not only in Russia, in Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, other countries also.
Right.
And Raj Kapoor is. I remember last year I gifted a bust of Raj Kapoor at the Tashkent International Film Festival,
Yes.
and huge amount of people just came to watch all the old movies of Raj Kapoor.
Right.
And so many old people came there who were talking about Raj Kapoor's visit to Tashkent International Film Festival.
Yes.
And how they all lifted a huge big car where Raj Kapoor was sitting.
Yes.
So
Right.
these
That's one of those great stories that I've heard as well. Where the people actually literally lifted that car and carried it.
the place even showed the street where
Yes.
where they lived.
Right.
So huge impact. Till now, it's a huge impact.
Yeah, huge impact across Russia and the CIS countries. But Ekaterina, please tell us more about your film that you've come to shoot here in India. What's it about? What's Gems about? Is there anything of a Raj Kapoor influence in the movie that you're making?
So it's social impact movie,
Yes.
which tells really sometimes sad, sometimes serious story about this small girl from Siberia
Right.
who dreams about visiting India.
A small girl
And,
from Siberia who
of course,
dreams
we
of
are
visiting
doing-
India. Yes.
It's in the style of traditional Indian movie. We are using dances, we are using original music, we are doing some core co-production music themes.
Yes.
When we are using together Indian music and Russian music.
Yes.
And I'm sure that that will be very interesting for Russian audience, and I hope not only. And
Right.
of course, my producer's dream is to have the opportunity to receive the opportunity to show this movie to Indian people.
Right. We can't wait to watch your movie, Katrina. Especially it's a Russian production and being shot in India after many years. Bhavna Somaya, there's a lot of young people out there who possibly don't know enough about Raj Kapoor. I'm sure everyone knows Rishi Kapoor and Ranbir Kapoor, but not enough of Raj Kapoor. How relevant do you think is Raj Kapoor to 2024, the Hindi film industry today? What can he teach the Indian Hindi cinema, which is actually struggling? It's an existential crisis today for Hindi cinema. They're unable to connect with their audiences. If you see film after film, as you mentioned, are flopping. What can Raj Kapoor advise today's filmmakers in Bollywood?
A wonderful memory comes back to me. There was a phase when Yash Chopra's films were not working. And Yash Chopra was very upset, and he met Raj Kapoor. And he said that, I don't know what kind of films to make.
Right.
And Raj Kapoor told him, one does not change one's autograph. You have to continue making the films you do, and it will click. Because all you have to do is to follow your heart.
Right.
Raj Kapoor followed his heart with his intellect. When the Zenith Aman film, what was it called?
Satyam Shivam Sundaram.
Yeah, it didn't work.
Yes.
But he was very clear in the message of it. And then, when Mera Naam Joker didn't work,
Yes.
and he got a lot of money, and he was depressed for a while, and he said, all right, if the world is all about the teenagers, I'll make a love story with teenagers.
Right.
He auditioned all the students in the school. That's how Dimple was found.
Right.
And he made Bobby.
Yes.
And he made the greatest love story. He's the inspiration for Suraj Barjatia, for Karan Johar, for
Yes.
Aditya Chopra, and for everybody.
Right.
And yet nobody can surpass his sophistication and
Yes.
his refinement.
Right.
His Sangam is an inspiration to Sanjay Leela Bansali,
Yes.
who made Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam.
Right.
The grandeur, the sex, and everything.
Yes.
The drama and the relationships and
Right.
gender equations that he brings about. I feel Raj Kapoor is as relevant or probably more relevant today than he was in his time.
Right.
It is just that we feel that the youngsters don't know about him.
Yes.
Because the youngsters are surfing, the youngsters are scrolling. I
Right.
mean, that song, Kisi Ki Muskurahaton Pe
Yes.
Ho Nikhar. It
Right.
is forever. It is about humanism.
Yes.
It is about compassion. Or वो सुबह कभी तो आएगी.
Yes.
It is about an ideology. It is about a belief for an utopian life,
Right.
or a country and your own ideals.
Yes.
And and he carried it off with so much simplicity,
Right.
that everybody just connected to him.
Absolutely. There's a lesson in what you just told us, Bhavna Somaya, the fact that India's film industry, especially Bollywood, needs to really go and discover or rediscover their inner Raj Kapoor, and possibly, as you said, it's follow their hearts and their intellect, and possibly rediscover their mojo, the kind of crisis that Indian cinema is going through. But you just heard from Bhavna Somaya and Ekaterina Filippo, and of course Sarfraz, the producer of Gems, about Raj Kapoor and his relevance to India, Russia, and of course the Indian film industry. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.